May we have your attention, please?
The risk of track workers being struck by trains is the highest risk for workforce in terms of fatalities, and these often happen when somebody strays outside a safe work area. Beyond the existing ways to mark the boundaries of a safe work area, the Network Rail Safety Task Force has been looking at other secondary systems that can alert people to when they step outside these defined boundaries. One of those systems uses geofencing, an electronic and digital system that can be used to define the boundaries of a safe work area. To talk about geofencing, how it works, and the work that Network Rail has been doing, I'm joined today by Jules Reed, Head of Behavioural Science at Tended, a technology company whose mission, according to its website, is to put an end to preventable accidents and fatalities. Welcome, Jules. Please, could I ask you first to tell our audience how you came to be involved with rail?
Hello. Yes, of course. And thank you for inviting me onto your podcast. So, to be honest, I started out in construction and then I had some time with utilities before going on to work for HS2, which is technically still under construction. But of course, it was important for us even then to understand how railways were run, managed and maintained. So since most of the leadership team had come from Network Rail, I gained a good understanding of the way that things run and, of course, the safety culture too. I then started working for Tended, who create safety technology that keeps people safe in high-risk industries. Actually, Tended won a design contest that was set by Network Rail's Safety Task Force. The challenge was to create a solution that would keep trackside workers safe, in particular from straying outside of safe working areas due to a loss of situational awareness. Tended developed a high-precision geofencing technology with a wearable device that keeps track workers safely within working limits and, most importantly, out of the path of trains. So, as the behavioural scientist, my role is to help everyone understand safety challenges that arise from safety culture and from the way people behave. In particular, why people behave unsafely and put themselves at risk. This allows us to design safety solutions that have the best possible outcome for improving safety. What's more, we can't simply create technology and solutions and expect them to change things overnight. We have to ensure successful adoption and engagement by the user, which means taking a strategic approach from a behavioural science point of view. And that's how I became part of Tended. And of course now I'm working with several Network Rail routes and principal contractors, including companies like Amco Giffen, Story Contracting, Siemens and Morgan Sindor.
Thank you very much, Jules. Let's start, if we may, by looking at the technology today. It's come a long way since the simple stepping outside the circle defined as a distance from a single transmitter area. So what's changed that's made it possible to describe more complex areas?
You're absolutely right. The technology has definitely become more sophisticated than that. So we start with an online dashboard that planners use to set up the virtual safe zone. And I guess the difference is it has high-res imagery of the work site and uses things like overlay tools like miles and chains. And it has a measurement tool to comply with safe working distance regulations. So to your question, the fence can be drawn to any shape, to any size. In fact, no matter how complex the site is, we can draw a geofence around it. And I think one of the best things for planners particularly is that they get to see a photographic image of the site, because in my experience, most planners don't get the time to go out and actually physically see the work area. So this gives them a much better experience and understanding of the ground and conditions that workers are facing. Once the geofence is drawn, the wearable devices are allocated to the site and are activated just before the work begins.
Thank you very much, Jules. A moment ago, you talked about a lack of situational awareness. In practice, that means that somebody doesn't know exactly where they are in relation to the safe work area boundaries. So just how accurate is geofencing technology? And in particular, how well does it meet Network Rail's standard 019, safety of people at work on or near the line?
this technology is incredibly accurate. At the moment, we're averaging 17 millimeters, but we've got some really talented engineers who are constantly trying to get that down, even though it's well within the 019 standard, which says that it should be less than 300 millimeters. So with this kind of accuracy, our technology is about 150 times more accurate than your typical GPS. This is why, so far, GPS hasn't been applied to improve situational awareness. Because in high-risk and safety-critical environments, where even a few centimetres can mean the difference between life and death, accuracy is so critical. So your standard GPS just doesn't cut it. At Tended, we use GNSS RTK technology. And this is the same system that's used by the military, the police, and for autonomous vehicles. This is why we can achieve such phenomenal accuracy and reliability. I mean, we're talking military-grade technology here. And we use established base stations to find the device's position. There are at least 3 of these constantly monitoring for the device. And rarely, but occasionally, one might lose connection. But another's found within seconds. And whilst this might sound initially like it's less safe, I really want to reassure everybody. All it means is that the accuracy might drop to about 20 millimeters during that time. So it's still safe and it's still well within the regulations. But you'll appreciate that this is a fundamentally important feature when working in safety critical environments. So it's something that we've had to prove to our clients.
Thank you, Jules. While we are looking specifically at your work with Network Rail today, would you tell us about other industries that are using geofencing technology to keep their workers out of harm's way?
Well, actually, it's interesting you should ask. One thing we found is that rail industries around the world like to follow the initiatives and innovations that Network Rail have adopted. And a great example of this is that we've recently had product approval in the Netherlands, as well as starting work with Infrabel in Belgium. And we've also got ongoing conversations in Ireland and Germany and Australia. So it's actually going global. But as you say, as well as that, we're also about to begin work in the highways and utilities industries, who all face very similar risks, actually, to the rail industry. So, for example, the UK highways encounter accidents with overhead cable strikes as well as fast-moving vehicles. And the utility industry sees 1 to 2 fatalities a year in the UK. And that's down to employees coming into close proximity to high-voltage equipment. Our technology can be used in these industries in exactly the same way as they're being applied in the railway. So it's incredibly exciting to us to think that we can soon be saving lives in other industries too.
Thank you, Jules. Continuing with the theme of the safety critical environment, how easy is it to set up a work site safe area ahead of arrival? What equipment and what competencies are needed to do it?
Okay, so we work closely with the planner to build confidence with the dashboard. And then we hold familiarisation sessions as well with the trackside working team to use the devices. So to be honest, whilst it's a very complex piece of kit, it couldn't be easier to use. It's simply that the geofences are drawn by the planner, usually weeks in advance. But we do know that things can change in the last minute. So the geofence can be set up or edited right up until the start of the work. Then it just needs to be activated. So you ask how easy it is. Well, it's pretty much the push of a button and there's no additional equipment needed. And it's so adaptable too. We also offer asset tagging for equipment like trolleys to help with line clearance verification and accurate placement of protective equipment such as marker boards. To be honest, there's so many ways to use this technology for safety.
Thank you, Jules. So that covers how work package planners would set up a safe site of work before work starts. But as we know, the area of a work site can change quite often in an unplanned way. So who would do that and how easy is it to do?
Yes, of course. We know that plans can change quickly. So, for example, if a possession's taken back to let a freight train through, for example. So using the same set protocols that are currently in place, the COS actually has the ability to stop and start a site in real time using their tablet if it's needed. Also, if, let's say, the length of a work site changes on the day of the work, a planner would just simply extend the geofencing, press go, and it would be activated immediately. I think it's one of the greatest things about our technology, to be honest. It's really agile to respond to sudden changes in operation, and we know that's incredibly important to our clients.
Thank you again, Jules. So that's covered most of the technology side of the operation, but your area of expertise is behavioural science. So where does that fit in with geofencing?
I'm so glad you asked that. So there are two main sides to my work. The first is to help the tech team with understanding user behaviours, and we can match that up then to device data. And what we're looking for is emerging patterns that could help us to improve the technology for the wearer. Because, of course, we do get some workers who are quite resistant to change, and new technology can be daunting for some people too. So it's part of my job to understand the fears and anxieties and to take that back to the tech team so that we can come up with ways to make the technology even easier, more intuitive and user-friendly. And that's exactly what we've done. The second part of my job is to support implementation of the technology because, let's face it, a device on a shelf isn't going to save lives. So I've developed a flexible engagement framework that incrementally builds confidence and competence and trust. And we start that process by socializing the technology. And what that means is that we explain why the technology exists, and that gives people context. We then familiarize them with the technology by demonstrating and explaining what's expected from a pilot, so that by the time we're launching on site, everybody knows what they're doing and what's expected of them. And that's an essential part of engagement, and one that's actually often missed, because about 70% of change initiatives fail due to a lack of well-planned engagement. But we found that our approach works really effectively, and we haven't encountered any problems with engagement after using this method. I feel like I should touch wood now. But once this technology is being used, I do like to get out on site and meet the people using it and their managers and get some good face-to-face feedback, which is incredibly valuable. And, I'm always amazed at how enthusiastic and innovative people are coming up with suggestions about further use cases or ways to make the wearable more wearable. And that's incredible for us because that's real engagement. I also offer situational awareness sessions to help everyone understand why our brains actually make us vulnerable to risk, because obviously human error is inevitable. Because we are unpredictable, we are inconsistent, and have lots of lapses in concentration. This is why technology is such an obvious solution, because once it's programmed, it is predictable, it is consistent, and unlike people, it never gets tired.
Jules, thank you for taking the time to explain geofencing technology and how it can be used as a secondary line of defence for those working on track. I look forward to hearing more about its use and success in future. With or without geofencing technology, please remember that going on the track is dangerous, and we all have to take individual responsibility as well. So, until the next time, stay well and stay safe.